Because let's face it, Earth, the planet, is getting warmer and warmer, and need to do something about it before things get anywhere. So joining me on the bench today, right next to me, is engineer Joseph Rugut. He's a refrigeration engineer. Right next to him is Linda Koskei. She's the head of multilateral agreements at the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. Right next to her is Philip Denzinger. He's a project manager at the German International Cooperation, or GIZ. And then on the very far end, Anita Soina, a climate change advocate. And right here in front of us, a whole audience of climate change advocates, experts in their field. So they're going to be helping me with some of the questions that have to do with climate change, right? Mambo, mambo. Much better. Linda, let's start with you. When it comes to, the whole climate change issue, there are some people who are in denial that climate change actually exists. What do you tell them?
Thank you, Jeff. I would start by saying that climate change is real. And just to break it down, we are already facing the impacts of climate change. For example, you remember the drought that we just had between 2019 and 2023, the longest one in 40 years, the floods that we've just had, and many other impacts all across the world. So climate change is real. I would want to relate that now by taking us through some basics with regard to how that is related with the issue of green cooling.
What is green cooling?
Yes. So in the year 1985, the world, or the globe, came to realize that the ozone layer is being depleted. I will start with the basics to explain what is the ozone layer. The ozone layer is a thin layer in the sky, in one of the layers called the stratosphere. It's about 10 to 50 kilometers up in the sky. And it's a very important layer because that layer filters ultraviolet rays from coming with its full force into the earth. So while we like enjoying our sunshine and getting our vitamin D, and while we know that sunlight is important to many processes here on earth, if that layer is not there, then there are harmful effects that are going to be felt. One of them is skin cancers and many other types of cancers. Another one is the increase of eye cataracts. Another one is the suppression of human immunity, effects to plants, effects to animals, effects to ecosystems. So this layer is very important in that it is protecting us from the harmful effect of ultraviolet rays. It was realized by the scientific community that this layer was being depleted by substances that are being used by humans in the earth. Those are called the ozone depleting substances. So the globe decided to come together in 1987 and came up with a multilateral environmental agreement, that is an international agreement, which is called the Vienna Convention on the Protection of the Ozone Layer. This was to encourage cooperation between the countries in the globe, so that they could be able to come up with a few principles, come up with elements of cooperation, so that they can see how to address this very critical issue of protecting the ozone layer. However, critically, there were no actions that were required from countries under that convention. Okay. Therefore...
I'll stop you there and I'll go to Philip real quick, because fast forward to 2016, and there was the Kigali Amendment. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was there in Kigali. It was another amendment to the Montreal Protocol that is regulating substances that are not harmful to the ozone layer anymore, but that are very harmful to the climate. So 1 kilogram can have an impact up to 12 tons, for example, of CO2 equivalent. So, and 12 tons, I mean, is a lot. You can fly like 6 times to Europe and back, for example. And so some of these substances, like air conditioners, for example, the single ones you have in your house, they have 1 kilo, and that kilo has an impact of minimum 2 tons of CO2. So you can fly to Europe and back, and these air conditioners are leaking every year, even up to 100%. So that's why we work together with the ministry for over 30 years now, supporting them in the implementation of those agreements. And also we work together with the industry. We train technicians to ensure that leakages are going down, but we also train them on green cooling equipment. So green cooling means we use natural refrigerants that are not harmful to the ozone layer and the climate. And these appliances that we promote are highly energy efficient. So they're also reducing the CO2 impact of due to fossil fuel energy production. And also, I mean, at the end, the consumer saves as well, because he or she pays less for the electricity. And the environment is benefiting, plus the government of Kenya as well, because less energy efficient energy production is required.
Okay, Engineer Joseph Ragut, you're a refrigeration engineer. Yes. What does that mean?
Yes, the engineers are there to provide solutions, and one of the needs on Earth is cooling, and cooling is because products and human beings, we like a comfortable environment. We like to feel good. And the products that we also produce in farming and also in food industry needs to be preserved. So engineers are to bring solutions which is in refrigeration and air conditioning. And these are the equipments that was cited as a major contributor of these gases that are depleting the ozone, and also a high impact on climate change. So as engineers on refrigeration and air conditioning, we are now impacted to see how we will do the transitioning better than if we were not aware. So as engineers, we are responsible on choosing the type of equipment or the type of building that will also lead to better and high quality cooling, so that we don't use a huge amount of investment just to obtain a cooling that could have even been attained naturally, or could have been attained by a smaller equipment, or could also have been attained by an equipment that consumes little electricity. So, which at the end of the day converts to the economic impact of people dipping into their pockets to pay more bills because of the inefficient equipment that was wrongly chosen, or wrongly installed, or wrongly maintained.
The buildings that we see coming up in let's say in the nation's capital, right in Nairobi, do they have to adapt to that green cooling?
Yes, currently there are regulations for people who design buildings and people who are responsible for construction to adapt to minimum standards of energy requirements. Most of them are required to adapt their designs so that they could use either some renewable energy to some level, or reduce the heat in terms of natural cooling or natural ventilation. Our design also the rooms so that if there is an equipment that is cooling that room, it does not cool the room, and yet the rooms are wide open. So you are cooling the air and it is flowing out, so it's not causing any impact.
All right, hold that thought. Anita Soina, where do you come in? How did you become a climate advocate, climate change advocate?
For me, it goes way back to when I just was about to join university, trying to find something to do. I first joined politics during the 2017 campaigns. I wasn't eligible to vote, so I was just around campaigning online for different people. And I met one person who introduced me to the Sustainable Development Goals. That was the first time I was hearing about that. And he used to remind me every day to read and give him feedback. What did you learn today on SDGs? And I read the different Sustainable Development Goals. And when he asked me, which one do you think you fit in? Because what exactly do you want? I said, I want to just give back to do something that gives back to the community. And that's when I started to learn and realize that climate change is not as big, it's not a big word that we hear. It's not something that we are told that will come in years, Years back, we thought it's something not even in our continent. But then I came to realize that the changes that we've been able to experience from childhood to now is really climate change. So understanding that it's the simple things that we witness in our daily lives, and we tend to ignore and think that climate change is something different.
Yeah.
So, and that's when I started to use my platform to talk about the issues.
Linda Koske, is it as simple as buying a fridge or buying an air conditioner can make the difference? Is it that simple?
Yes, it is that simple, Jeff, and it can make a difference. When you're going to buy a refrigerator or air conditioner, you make sure that you go and buy the green ones, the ones that have the natural refrigerants. Because the ones that have the natural refrigerants then do not affect the ozone layer, and they also do not affect climate change, or they're not global warmers. Therefore, it is very keen that also the citizens are aware that even when you're going to buy your refrigerator, then you look at the energy efficiency marks, which have been put there courtesy of the Ministry of Energy. When you're going to also buy your air conditioning equipment, you also make sure that you make an informed choice. So consumer informed choices then becomes very important in terms of dealing with issues that we're discussing today about protecting the ozone layer and also issues of climate change. And that is why we are here today, Jeff, because then this is a forum for raising awareness on why it is important for the public to know why the ozone layer is important, and if it is depleted, then what the consequences are, not only for the ozone layer, but also in terms of climate change.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to let the audience know we're going to go to you very shortly, okay? So stand by. I hope you're paying attention to what they're saying. And when we come to you, you give us your name, tell us where you're from, and direct your question to whoever the panelist is, okay? We'll get to you in a little short moment. In the meantime, Philip, I remember 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago, when there was talk about that ozone layer. There was a crack in the ozone layer. And it was huge news back then. And we all thought we were all going to die. But 40 years later, it's almost been filled, right?
Yeah, almost. I mean, it's still not totally filled, but the Montreal Protocol and that agreement, the global agreement, made sure that this hole is closing. And that was very important, as Linda pointed out. Otherwise, we would not be able to go into the sun anymore. I mean, we still need a lot of sun blocker, but I hope that my grandchildren they need less or none. So it was very successful agreement. There's estimates that it avoided even around 2 degrees of global warming overall, and even the Kigali Amendment is avoiding another 0.5 degrees of Celsius, only by regulating the substances, so-called HFCs, that are used in refrigerators and air conditioners. So only by phasing them down, we avoid 0.4 degrees, but overall I think we can say 2.5 degrees avoidance of global warming in terms of temperature.
But Linda, many people can't afford that fridge or that air conditioner that's green, let's say. You walk into a store and you pick the one that you can afford. You don't care about whether it's green or whatever, for the most part. What do you tell people?
Okay, what I can say what the government is doing now in terms of the policies that are in place. So we currently, as we have said, we are a party to the Montreal Protocol. So already we have started facing down, especially through the Kigali Amendment, the HFCs. So that now through the regulator, and the regulator here is NEMA, we have domesticated all these agreements we are talking about, the Montreal Protocol, the Kigali Amendment of 2016, which is specifically on those HFCs. We have laws in place. We have the Controlled Substances Regulations, which is being enforced by NEMA. So NEMA now is checking at the point of import what is coming in with the support of the customs, so that now and through our partnership also with other stakeholders like GIZ, we have also been able to do a lot of training even for custom officials, so that they're able to know even at the point of importation what kind of refrigerators and air conditioning equipment are coming in, so that they have to adhere to a certain standard with regard to the natural refrigerants and also with regard to high energy efficiency. So you will find that because of the policies that the government has put in place, through especially the regulations that are in place, then we are able to control at the point of import, so that then when now the public or the consumers now go to buy whatever products they're going to buy. They're able to get the products that have adhered to the standard. We are also encouraging, especially those who are involved in the cold supply chain, to now start moving their equipments towards that direction. For example, the supermarkets and the butcheries and all these other facilities, so that they now start moving towards the natural refrigerants and high efficiency, so that we are looking forward that even in our own market in Kenya, we will not be having at some point all these products that have the ozone depleting substances. That is why now there's a face down period, and now Kenya, through the government, through putting the policies in place, then is going to ensure that, so that wherever you go at the point of purchase, then you're able to get access of this equipment that have adhered to the standards. We also have a national energy efficiency and conservation strategy. We also have a national climate change national cooling action plan. So there are quite a lot of policies that the government is putting in place. And after ratification of Kigali Amendment, and Kenya ratified it last year as the 153rd country, the government is also now working towards preparation of the Kigali implementation plan. So it's putting now in place a strategy and working together in a whole government, whole society approach in terms of implementation.
All right, Anita, Anita Soina, does your generation understand climate change and green cooling? Do they understand?
For climate change, I can say yes, because over time the effects have forced many people to understand. Before, it was so hard to even communicate climate issues, but then because you're facing the effects, it's becoming normal for people to understand what the issues are. When it comes to cooling, I can say most of even the people in the climate space and my fellow young people in the climate space, it has not really been given much of a priority. When we discuss climate issues, when clearly it's something that is very interlinked. So I can say there's a still bit of grayness when it comes to cooling, but I think through such avenues, because I personally, as much as I'm a climate change advocate sharing information, I learn since I didn't go to class for it. It's everyday knowledge, forums, conferences. So I think through what GIZ is doing, for example, we are able to share and communicate so that most of the young people in our space also understand how they can also advocate for the same. And looking at the same issue, I was sharing that, for example, I work in the rural areas of Kajiado, and during the drought that was named as the worst drought in 40 years, we work with a school where children used to go to school only during the morning, to class only during the morning hours and late evening because of the conditions. Because when we talk about adaptation, we don't look at how do we even adapt to the heat that we have because of climate change. So I think, yes, that's one of the things that needs to be talked about more. There needs to be a lot of communication around it so that we can be able to look at it as an also adaptation measure.
Yeah. Yes. Engineer Rugut, the AC, let's say in this room here, sometimes it leaks. Is that a problem?
It's a very serious problem.
Oh,
Jeff.
yeah.
And I would like to just elaborate it better this way. Yes. My colleagues have actually mentioned treaties, laws, and also work plans. And most of these work plans are very good. But the engineer here, which is I and other colleagues, and also some groups like associations of engineers for HEVAC, association of people who trade on refrigerants, also they exist in Kenya. So first of all, we have that privilege of knowing what gas is inside that refrigerator. Mm-hmm. And by the communication from the ministry, we know which gas should not even we should not even attempt to release it. And which gas, if we release, will have zero harm, right, both to environment and the ozone. So it comes down now to not allowing leakages, and that is now comes to the technicians. And that is the area we need to really request and emphasize out there. The technician is a person who can make sure that there is no leakage. He is also the person who can make sure that there is the right gas in the refrigerators. So from the time these laws were enacted and these protocols were followed, equipment have come into the country which has natural gases. Natural means that if they just get out of the fridge, they just mingle and become just like the composition of air. We have ammonia, we have carbon dioxide, and we also have the hydrocarbons. And all of them are refrigerants. So we won't wish that the technician, which is now like the link to the user, and the laws that are being passed, and the manufacturers, the person which is in the middle is the technician. And so we are asking for that person to be responsible and also to be trained, fully trained and competent, so that they can handle the existence or the lifetime behavior of the refrigerators and the air conditioners.
Let's go to our audience, folks. They're listening very keenly. Sarah, let's start with you there. Tell us who you are, who you represent, and who your question is directed to.
Thank you very much, Jeff. My name is Samuel Wanjau. I'm a researcher at the Africa Center for Technology Studies. We are a think tank in the area of science, technology, and innovation. However, my area is in digital economy, and my question is on emerging technologies. So it's not a very difficult question. Emerging technologies can be used in climate mitigation and also climate action, specifically on the aspect of awareness, whereby you can even have chatbots that can demystify some of these protocols and laws. But one of the biggest barriers is access to data sets, especially data sets that are contextually relevant to our context in Africa and Kenya. So my question goes to Philip and also my colleague from industry, engineer, and also Linda as well, is how available are data sets in order to leverage emerging technologies for the benefit of the society? Thank you.
Very good. Philip.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the question. I think, digital and artificial intelligence and data plays a very crucial role. And I think we, in the refrigeration and air conditioning sector, we are not there yet. And there's a huge potential also when it comes to energy saving and also usage, but also performance of the appliance. So what is happening now, more and more manufacturers having software, and of course more and more appliances are also getting connected. So manufacturers are collecting more and more data. And we need that data also to increase the performance and efficiency of the appliance and also to use it efficiently. Because, I mean, we talk about promoting efficiency. That's very important, but if the appliance is not installed properly and maintained, it's not efficient. And if the appliance is not used properly, it's not efficient again. It's very inefficient. So you can have the most efficient device. So, and artificial intelligence and data and digitalization can help also at educating the user. Like I have ideas and I'm talking to manufacturers to say, okay, I take the phone. The phone tells me, look, if you increase the temperature by 1 degree, you can save 20% of electricity and you save that much money. So we need to really try to get smart and raise awareness through digitalization and artificial intelligence that the user is getting more educated and is changing the behavior. But we could also use all the data to make the appliances more efficient, to program them in a way that they operating properly, or that they even send. In Europe, we have, for example, with the heat pumps, the technician, if the heat pump has a problem, the technician gets a message and say, hey, there's a problem with that heat pump. Please go and visit and check what's wrong. So the technician can maybe then also on his phone already check and maybe help. Or he needs to go there and optimize it, whatever, recharge the refrigerant or whatever. So I think there's a huge potential. And we are just at the beginning, but we should use it. And we also need that data for policy and for monitoring purposes. Then we know, so we have at the moment 1 million air conditioners in Kenya. But in 2050 we will have 2.5 million air conditioners. And so we know how many hours are they running, how much electricity do they use, at what times of the day do they run. Then we can also program them smartly. Maybe we should cool at night when we have enough electricity that the room is cold already and we don't need to use them in the morning hours, just to make it smart. But sorry, guys.
Engineer, you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you so much. Also, with the technology, as you have said, is so crucial because the equipment that are designed for us to choose from, they are usually given by our regulatory bodies. They are given a label, which is usually in terms of star ratings and energy efficiency. And so sometimes the general public don't know the meaning of that green color in the label, the meaning of the 4 stars or the 3 stars or the 5 stars. But also at times you also have a QR code that accompanies that label, which will give you the data of that refrigerator or air conditioner. And the reason is that the star rating should always match the wattage that that machine will consume, so that you know whether you are actually saving or not. And again, energy efficiency should also be a measure, because energy efficiency means that your refrigerator can do work. For example, natural refrigerants, so the data that we have shows us that they are about 40% capable of doing the same work that the gases that are being phased out were doing. So that data should be available, as you have said, through information on the labels. So you are in the right track. You can just enable that data to be read, or since they are smartphones and readers, the consumers can decide this machine will be able to be run by my power system.
Okay, Linda, you want to add something real quick?
Yes, Jeff, I would first like to say that this protocol, Montreal Protocol, is heralded, it's known in the globe as the most successful multilateral environmental agreement. And why it is known as the most successful one is because of, first, of the issue of the scientific assessments that take place and the kind of data that is generated through the scientific panels. It has quite a number of scientific panels. So issues of data are important, but again, it has been seen that there are some gaps, especially when it comes to Africa. There are some gaps, especially with regard to monitoring. So that is something that has been discussed at a global scale, and action is going to be taken with regard to that. Also, what Philip said with regard to the monitoring systems, that's another key area where digitization, because then we need to also monitor the emissions at a global scale, so that we are able to know at what rate or what percentage are we now decreasing these emissions, and how are we able to, as a globe, deal with the hydrofluorocarbons, which is what really now we are trying to regulate through the Kigali Amendment. So we agree with him that digitization is key, and I also agree with what these two have said, and also data is very critical. And
for future sakes, I guess AI would also play a role, right, Philip?
Yes, indeed. I mean, you see, if your air conditioner is smart and has somehow some artificial intelligence and it's connected, and so when it might only, if all air conditioners run at the same time, they use too much electricity. But if you would program them through artificial intelligence and connect them, that they're not running at the same time. One runs in this 10 minutes, the other one in that 10 minutes. So you would avoid the total electricity demand at one point.
Yeah,
and
maybe
yes.
you should work for KPLC.
Of course, we need to also be careful to protect it. Of course, I mean, in Europe we already have some hacker attacks.
Yeah.
I mean, if they could hack your AC or they hack your printer or whatever, so it needs to be protected. There are some risks, but generally, I believe there's a huge potential when it comes to saving electricity, saving cost, saving emissions also because you could control leakages or make the device just more efficient.
Yeah. Engineer, will you look at our AC when we go on commercial break?
Please, we have to.
Okay. We're going to take a commercial break. Come back and get your questions. I'm sure many of you have questions. We'll go straight to the floor. It's up to you. Are you guys understanding what's happening here? Yes. You get it? Yes. Really? Because I have no clue what's happening. I'm kidding. We're going to take a break. This is a very important subject, folks. Climate change and green cooling. Do you get what these folks are saying? If you don't, stick with us. We'll keep explaining it until it hits home. Same time, keep tweeting at Krenanga Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLIVE. JKLIVE takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.